We've got a lot of these that are right on the edge, where if the hat gets passed and there's somebody motivated enough to cut that check, things could happen. Is there motivation to make a move on Mike Locksley if this team goes 4-8? Because Maryland's win total at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make every moment more, is at 4.5. We're split fairly evenly, over -115, under -105, 4-8, 5-7. I mean, it is anything short of a bowl going to lead to a change at Maryland, or does this have to be a total bottom falls out type situation for Locksley, somebody who has appeared, relatively safe? When you say Maryland football is a spot where, whether it's, boosters, fans, administration, there is not a thought. And maybe it's from the fact that when they joined the Big Ten, they got thrown in the Big Ten East when you had to play Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and a Michigan State program that was running hot at the time. But it's not like they set unrealistic expectations for Maryland football based on what I've been able to observe. Yet, like a 4-8 type season without any steps forward would at least need taking a step back and assessing things, right?
Yeah, and it's not just 4-8 overall. They were 1-8 in conference play. So I had opined in a column I wrote last year that about Mike Locksley potentially being on the hot seat last season if things didn't turn around. I heard back from some people who would know much better than I that considering the 3 seasons he had before, there was no way that Locksley was going to be in any trouble no matter how last season finished. If the second straight season of that happens, maybe. But you kind of get to the situation where, and I think, this is important, even though it's not something we discuss too much. How much does Maryland really care? Like, they joined the Big Ten. They're getting the money. Is it that important to them to be competing for playoff spots and that kind of stuff, or do they just want a competent football team, whatever, for people? And then you've seen what happened with basketball this year. Chip, you're closer to Maryland fans than I've ever been, even because they've only been in the Big Ten for a short time. What sport has always mattered more to that fan base?
Oh, basketball.
Exactly. So if the basketball team is winning at the rate that it's winning, I don't know how much pressure there will be on them to replace Locksley if they have another bad football season. But you look at their schedule, like they should start 3-0. You get Wisconsin on the road. We just talked about that. That's a winnable game, even though I doubt it. But they do have your former quarterback, so maybe there's a revenge narrative. But overall, like, this schedule is really damn easy compared to most Big Ten schedules. There's no Ohio State. There's no Penn State. There's no Oregon. You get Michigan, but it's at home. You get Illinois on the road, UCLA on the road, Rutgers on the road, Wisconsin on the road. Not the most devastating road schedule that you could find. Like, there is opportunity there for this team to take a step forward. So if they don't, I do wonder what kind of situation Locksley would find himself in. I think it depends on how bad the losses are more than anything.
Okay, I mean, I think the number of losses, if you go 4-8, the most likely path to 4-8, if we had to pick out games, is what? Beat NIU, beat FAU, beat Towson, and then beat at UCLA, maybe hosting Michigan State to end the year. Although I think at that point you're probably on quit watch. Hosting Washington, yeah. I mean, I struggle to find a way in which 4-8 is never good, but I agree with you, Tom. Like 4-8, when none of these losses feel like extremely acceptable, even to a Maryland fan with reasonable expectations. Like Michigan, certainly, yeah. If Michigan's back, that's different. But everybody else here, like, I don't think Maryland's cool with, like, yeah, let's just automatically chalk up a loss for Indiana. I don't think Maryland is cool with, like, let's lose at Rutgers. Let's lose. I mean, if you're a Maryland fan, you're like, they only took Rutgers to get the cable boxes for the old Big Ten network, like that. Like, and now we're dogs to them on the road. That's a little wild. I think 4-8 might be trouble. Yeah, even if it's a program without great expectations. This is a gift schedule that you don't always get. This is the schedule that you were hoping to get when the division's disbanded. And if you don't do anything with it, I think you're pretty pissed.
Did any Maryland football fan think, thank goodness the New York Jets didn't hire Mike Locksley when he interviewed for that job in January?
No.
None. Like, so they're like, and that maybe that's more with like the fan apathy. Like maybe they don't care that much, but I think it also speaks volumes. I think in fact, most of them would have been like, yeah, please take it so we can get a new start. But they're only paying him $4 million a year. It's kind of like if you can just get to a bowl, which is probably a pretty good accomplishment. We're going through that schedule. It's not like there's many games you're chalking up as W's. The fact that he did have multiple 8-win seasons is pretty impressive, even with the schedule. So,
they put like a couple guys in the league every year. They don't have real like high level Big Ten depth, but they have a couple of players on both sides of the ball almost every season that you're like, that guy is a difference maker who could show up at almost anywhere else and be able to jump right in and be considered a peer. So you are recruiting talent. You are putting talent into the NFL. The nature, Mike Locksley, former offensive coordinator, he has often had like good wide receivers, good skill position, which makes the viewing experience exciting. The hires have been pretty good. I mean, just got, what was it, Pep Hamilton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
They did lose Brian Williams, who I thought did a nice job for them as the DC.
As the DC, because we were saying that a lot when we were breaking Maryland games. I mean, that's the Maryland spot. Love to take them when they're a big underdog to cover a spread and not win the game because they're well coached.
Of Inside Maryland Sports did report that Ted Monticino, the new DC, is going to be more aggressive. So that's usually what we hear. I'm sure that's what he was told. They're going to have.
Are they going to be multiple too?
I don't know about multiple. But I think this is important to Tom's point about how the losses may come. Guys, they lost a ton on the D line.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that proves to be their downfall, it means you're getting pushed around a lot by Wisconsin, Nebraska, UCLA, certainly still kind of pro style, wants to run the ball. Like Indiana ran the ball pretty well last year. Rutgers is going to run it 45 times. You think Illinois might like seeing a worn down D line for Maryland just a little bit. Michigan, Michigan State, like that's a tough stretch for a unit with that D line and probably cannot afford any kind of attrition.
Yeah, and before the Maryland fans that love football come after me, I know it. I'm an Illinois fan who cared far more about football than most of the fan base. I'm not saying you don't exist, but using Scott Van Pelt as the measuring stick, I don't see SVP in random mentions talking crap to people about Maryland football. See him doing it about basketball all the time, though.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say on the comment there from Quantrell Knows, Maryland is underachieving at this point. What is the realistic expectation for Maryland? Like they only the Ralph region in the ACC, which again is a different landscape, had them 3 times to 10 wins. But other than that, it's been a lot of 6 wins, 5 wins, 7 wins, 6 wins, or worse. So like the fact that Mike Locksley got into 8-5 back to back, like that's a pretty good run for them.
Yeah.
I guess you have to set the expectations of what you're supposed to be. And I know, again, it's kind of like Tom said, you're not being harsh. It's just a reality. Like not everyone in this landscape, maybe when we get parity and there's a revenue share and it's evenly distributed, but you just don't have as much talent as most of the teams you're playing against.
I think part of it comes when you look at Maryland's recruiting territory where they're based. Like there's a ton of talent there. But again, making the comparison to what I dealt with as an Illinois football fan, a lot of talent in Illinois too, especially in the Chicago area. The problem is everybody's recruiting it.
Yeah.
When you're Maryland or you're Illinois, you don't have that same kind of traction with all of those players. Although you do get some of them. Like we have seen Locksley put together some pretty damn good recruiting classes with some high-end talent. It's just he hasn't been able to build a team.
Right.
You're not going to.
Is a ton of talent.
If Mike Locksley can't.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a great recruiter.
Guys, but it ain't going to happen.
There's this thing called.
No, we're not going to tut Maryland fans for.
I mean, like take the checks, take the losses. This is an example. Like, you're around that talent.
There's these things called airplanes that players can get on and their families can. So it's not that big of a deal to go to Penn State. As somebody mentioned, they raid the DMV, which is 100% right. But so does everybody. I mean, like you are going to lose the top players to Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and probably a lot of other Michigan State. I mean, you could go down a list of tems that the players are probably going to go to if they have offers from both those schools.
All right.
Yeah, Penn State might have a runway issue, but yeah, I get your point more than most.
Not in those regional planes.
In my lifetime, how many bowls do you think Maryland has made? That's a pretty good measuring stick, right?
I would bet they've done 20, 22. Wait, hold on. Your lifetime?
Yeah.
Okay, 22.
No
A little
way.
bit lower.
Lower? 18.
17.
Lower.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's not a great
Maryland
Aren't you
has
39?
gone to-
Aren't you 39?
Maryland has gone to
Yeah.
14 bowls in 39 years. Okay? If you're making
Yeesh.
bowls in the Big Ten half the time, as Mike
Good.
Locksley has basically done, that's a hell of an achievement. I don't care how much talent is around you. You're not going to get that talent. Your fans don't care that much. As we just said, you don't have that kind of NIL money, right? You don't have any kind of tradition. You don't have it. Like, that's not going to happen. If you're making bowls like 3 out of every 7 years, as Locksley has done, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Like, that's what your history says you are.
Do y'all remember, and I've called this quote out before, I believe it was at Maryland Athletic Director Damon Evans at the groundbreaking for a new athletic facility, said something along the lines to reporters of, we did this fundraising in the wrong era because now kids would get dressed in a trash can for $20 million. Or $2 million or something like, I mean, it was just like something along the lines of like, we passed around the hat. We did all this fundraising. We did this huge construction project, but that was the old way of trying to attract recruits, because now we're in this new era where how fancy the touch screen is on your locker room doesn't mean anything compared to what that NIL check is going to be. Lots of interesting stuff to keep an eye on there in College Park.